I think we see Willis coming out. Here comes Willis.
Welcome to the Mecca Respect. We deserve that. Willis, Reed, Wall, Clyde, give them a slow clap. From the Pearl to Patrick, and they should know that. This is the
Knicks throwback.
Houston's Bree, Starks, Oaks, and Mace. Melo and the King getting buckets in your face. When LJ hit the three, we ain't really know how to act. Through the history almanac, this the
Knicks throwback.
But let's move on to some good stuff. I got a monologue here. It's my favorite Knick moments of all time. Kurt Thomas in Utah, 2012-2013 season. What's interesting about that year is I remember we started like 18-3 and we ended like 18-3 or something like that. The middle we were like 22-22 or something. But we were on the road, West Coast road trip. At the end of the road trip, at this point, the team, we had lost like 4 in a row and like players were injured left, right, and center. And Kurt Thomas in Utah on like a broken foot basically puts in the last vestige of his NBA career, puts into the last 2 quarters of that game, shuts down Derek Favors, who could have been his son. Like that's how young Derek Favors was back then. Does everything right. You know, he didn't score a ton of points, but he was just in the right place, rebounded well, boxed out, gave us a boost. Raymond Felton closed that game. And we ended the season on a high note. So Kurt Thomas in New York twice. Kind of a weird Knick legend for us. 99 as well. But I love you for that game. He didn't play again. His last ever NBA game. And it's something Knicks fans should always remember. Shout out to Kurt Thomas.
He's for sure a Knicks legend.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, well, I got one that's just for me. That I specifically skewed our data by including this. And then there was a debate about whether this should even count because technically, he was traded to the Knicks during the 09-10 season, which is technically like the 2000s, but it happened in 2010, so I'm counting it. Tracy McGrady, my jersey, my favorite jersey. I love Tracy McGrady, so him getting traded to the Knicks, for me, personally, was one of my personal highs of this past decade. Feels like so long ago. He played essentially 1 game for the Knicks, so that counted. He had the 26...
The first game, right?
The 26 points
man.
Against the Thunder in the first game, I think, was basically the only good thing he ever did in a Knicks uniform. But I'll take it. It's mine. That's my moment.
Everyone has their own. We're going to give you yours as well, Jeremy. You could think on it for a bit. Unless you have it. I think you have it.
We're going to talk about one.
So we'll
get
on the list. Funny thing about T-Mac, one thing I want to say is I remember when he had that first game, I'm like, oh shit, it's going to be T-Mac and LeBron next year.
I thought that too.
T-Mac could have like a great late career.
T-Mac is resurgent.
They go into the meeting and they just play his performance against the Spurs and it's like, see that?
Yeah.
I can do that. Like, both of them come on.
In 09, T-Mac was still not on the court, but he's still T-Mac, you know? I mean, that's why you felt the way you did.
Yeah, he still had the gravitas. Like, it just felt like he had some bad breaks with injuries and stuff, but he got healthy, and then it seemed like Houston didn't want to play him because they didn't want him to get hurt again.
More so than him being done.
So that they could trade him.
Yeah.
That was kind of the whole thing at the time. So then they finally trade him to the Knicks, and I was like, oh, he's been saying that he's ready to go for like months now. You know, but they just weren't playing him, and then they refused to trade. You know, they finally traded him.
Right.
Got the deal from the Knicks, and ultimately, what the Knicks gave up in that deal didn't end up being too crazy. I mean, it was like Jordan Hill, who was their first rounder that year.
I think was it
the future
one pick?
Yeah, I forget who the pick turned into.
Was that that might have been the Jakob Podol, or was it the Where Jamal Murray one though? It might be.
That might be that.
Vivek, you can let us know.
Yeah, but either way, it was cool though. Like I just remember that first game, I was like, oh my god, he's still T-Mac, and then the rest of the season, not so much. But
I remember Jonathan Bender, another random guy in that kind of last decade, who had that thing for me.
Yeah.
But there was some winning this decade. Don't forget. I want to talk about 2 Knicks first. First, you have the first playoff win, which is the series we lost, but then the first series win. So the first playoff win, that's against the Heat. We were down 3-0, but J.R. Smith throws down this crazy dunk against the Heat at the Garden. I know at this point, you know, we had not been. What was the year? Was it 2002 or 3? The last time we had made it to the playoffs, maybe?
It was it was like 04 against the Nets
when you got swept with 4-0,
and they were it was the 1-8 matchup.
Right, exactly. So, you know, we finally win a playoff game, and what falls from the sky? Confetti. A 3, even though we're down 3-1, it was amazing. But do you remember? I mean, I was so excited. Just like, oh my God, the Knicks are winning a game.
Look, it was one of those moments where I realized it was pathetic in the moment, but I didn't even care. I was sitting there, I was still happy. You know, it was impossible not to be. You're like, yes, the Knicks won. Like, this is amazing. Like, and the confetti was falling, and you're like, we're gonna lose this damn series, but I don't care. We're down 3-1, but we got a home playoff win, and you know, you just felt so excited. You could see the players were so excited to finally get the monkey off their back because, like, the media was talking about how, like, if the Knicks didn't win a playoff game during this series, that it was, I think, it was going to set a new futility mark or something.
Oh, wow.
There was something that was going to happen that was going to, like really look bad on them, like the amount of years between playoff wins or something. Like they were going to set an NBA record of some sort, if I remember right. And so there was like a big monkey on their back about this. And to finally get that win, you could see that, like, if nothing else, they knew they weren't going to win the series.
Yeah.
But they knew that they could at least be like, we won a game.
Yep.
And that's all that mattered.
And not just any game. Remember, this is the big bad Heat. Like,
and then the next year was the year that they... Am I timelining this right? Was the next year the year then that they...
I think.
That they won the...
Yeah, because I think wasn't that year post Linsanity?
Yes.
The year after Linsanity was everything.
Because Baron Davis was in that and Shump tore his ACL.
Baron Davis
tore his ACL. Mike Bibby. Oh my God.
Where ACL's going to die.
Mike Bibby
that was
on
the series
that
where Mike Bibby
Yeah.
had to play big minutes during that playoff series, and then he lost his shoe, and Dwayne Wade threw his shoe into the crowd.
I remember
that too.
Because I just remember it being legal.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't throw shoes? What the hell?
I just remember being like, what a dirtbag move. Like, your team is so much better than us already, and we're starting Mike Bibby. Like,
that goes back to the LeBron thing, where I was pissed about him that series as well. But Knicks' first playoff win, were you there? Do you remember?
I was not there, but I can tell you, like, I'm gonna date myself in the opposite direction. It's like, for me, that was really the first Knicks playoff win that I'd ever truly witnessed.
Yeah.
Because the point where, like, I followed the team, but I wasn't old enough to really, when that last one had happened. And shout out to the Pistons for now holding the record for most consecutive losses, because it's great. But it's the sort of thing where it didn't feel like a championship, but when you see confetti, you're like, wow, this is just a huge weight. If this is the closest I get to a championship, so be it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be. But in the sense of where, and it wasn't, it just felt like it was a great relief against the big bad Heat to see finally a postseason win, which you've been waiting a decade for.
You know, I would watch what you say about, you know, it's not going to happen where I'm not going to see a championship, because I'm sure there's some people that were born right after 1973 that are like, I'll see one for sure.
Well, no, I meant like the peak of the winning one playoff game is not the peak, and it hasn't been since then, which is good. But
you're right. Like you said, right after, things got even better.
Yeah.
For our next positive moment, I'm going to ask our producer, Angel, to toss me that jersey right there, because we have to give something a little bit for the future here. Thank you. Alex's jersey. But the Knicks draft RJ Barrett. Now, a lot to unpack about where he'll be, but just on the basis of highest draft pick since Ewing. Mm-hmm. And you can genuinely see the first pick really since then that you can genuinely feel like this guy could be, even if he's not the best player on the team, this guy's going to be a leader. And, you know, we've said this about guys before, but if he's like a Knick for life, yo, I'm a Knick, all that comes with it. But the Knicks draft RJ Barrett, even after falling in the lottery, and the way things are looking now, not the worst thing would happen. No. But just thoughts on RJ and the draft and that moment in general.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's 19 years old.
Yours.
It's the sort of thing where you expect 19-year-olds to struggle in the beginning, of course, but the way I looked at it was, okay, well, first of all, Knicks didn't fall to 4 or 5, because I was so afraid that they would fall to 5. And, you know, you've got Zion in a tier of his own. But I thought as well, like, okay, well, then you've got John, RJ at least neck and neck, if you want to call it, and it could be so much worse. And with RJ, it was like, well, I figured Ja's going to be off the board because he seems like a great fit for Memphis, and he's from that region where, or at least goes to school there, it makes a lot of sense for it to be.
And they were locked into him early. It felt like it's like they're taking Ja. Yeah.
So for RJ, it was like, okay, you're telling me that the Knicks now have a chance to get a player who was really the consensus preseason #1 pick overall before the Zion hype really rocketed in the beginning of the Duke year. But before that, it was RJ, and he had that game again with Canada against the U.S. where with the U19 or U17 and U18, it was just, wow, what this kid can do is fantastic. So that's something that I am so looking forward to watching him. Like you said, maybe he's not the best player that the Knicks might have, but he's that piece where you at least feel we're moving in a different direction. We've got more assets certainly than we did yesterday. Let's ride.
And just like, you know, him saying, yo, I'm a Knick, and embracing it. Like, this, you know, you talk about dating yourself and things like that. Like this, you know, and something that KD brought up as well, but this generation really, if you're born in like 99, 98, you don't know the Knicks being a valued franchise. RJ did because of his granddad, right? And you see him with the Knick hat from when he's like 8, 9 years old, and you could genuinely see, when he said, yo, I'm a Knick, that's one of the most authentic things I think I've seen just in NBA in general, just like, whoa, this is crazy.
Well, also, like, the writing was on the wall for him for a while, so he knew it was coming. Like, I don't think RJ had any doubt in his mind, based off what we heard then after the draft about how Mills and Perry had them over to, like, Mills had him over for dinner with his family.
And watched the finals together, I think.
And watched the finals together. Like, they were already schmoozing. Like, they knew that was written in stone. But, like, the general media didn't yet know that. And so it was kind of, you could tell, like, the culmination where it all finally set in with RJ, where he was like, wow, I've known this for, like, weeks now that I'm going to be a Knick. But now I actually have the hat on, and I'm actually gonna be going to summer league with them in a week or two or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you can see the excitement, and it's. I think he's really embraced it. I think he's really. I know we've kind of said this before. I mean, we fell into this trap with Porzingis, obviously. But I feel like RJ even more so is perfectly built for the city and the market and the expectations that come with this. He's unflappable. They talk about it even all the time on the TV broadcasts about no matter the situation of the game, if the Knicks are getting blown out, if they're blowing out, if they're in a tight game, he's just stoic all the time.
Yep.
He's made for the pressure. He gives great quotes to the media.
Great with the media. For his age, so polished.
Yeah, right from the start, and that's because he's been being covered like a number one player since he was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And but he's also got a really hard work ethic. It seems like I think that if we would look back on this video a few years from now, we might be like, wow, we had this way too low because because we're gonna be like, oh, RJ really was has turned into something fantastic for the city of New York. And I think that he legitimately, and I don't even just say this as a homer, has a chance to be the face of New York sports, not just the face of the Knicks. I think he could realistically be that guy in a number of years.
I could see it. I think, you just brought up, that we will look back on this. The fact that he's even on this list, despite literally being the last year of the decade, kind of proves that the expectations are high, but he feels like someone who's going to live up to them. My thing with RJ, given his faults, we all know his faults, but for me with RJ, and you talk about his mentality, I just feel like he has such a desire to be great that he's going to make sure he gets there no matter what. And it's beautiful to know the Knicks have a player like that. Kind of going back in time again, 2010, you know what happened, but there was a glimmer of hope when Amar'e stood in front of the Garden in his suit, or even I think he did the press conference, but then he was in front and all that, and said the Knicks are back. And then played like it. Then you saw him just take it on, broke that 30-point per game record that Ewing had. Just your Amar'e, like I said, it got bad later on, but there was something about those first 6 months that just felt like, okay, this is it.
Yeah, he had a stretch of 9 games in a row where he scored at least 30 points.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment where I remember the MVP chance when he's at the free throw line. It's just yeah, maybe the Knicks aren't back, but this is so much better than what we've been dealing with.
Yeah.
It seems like a step in the positive direction. And then you think about Melo and how he'll eventually come, or at least hope he'll come. And yeah, the Knicks were back in terms of relevance. People were talking about them in a
That's
positive
true. Relevancy
way.
Definitely were. It's true. Melo doesn't come without Amar'e. And even that team, I always look back on that team fondly, that Gallinari and Chandler and Felton, first time Felton. Because they were flowing, near the end when the Melo trade happened, mid-season or whatever, we were kind of falling off a bit. But the early season, it kind of felt like, there's a lot to add to this.
There was always something special about the Amar'e signing. Yeah, the contract proved burdenous over time. However, he was the first major star, all-star at that, who willingly signed with the Knicks as a free agent. Yeah, money played a huge role in that. And yeah, the Knicks were never in a position to sign a maximum caliber free agent before, but this had to be something of significance. As he proclaimed, the Knicks are back. Amar'e proved its worth immediately during the first half of the season. 9 straight 30-point games, a hair away from a buzzer-beating 3 against the Celtics. He was basically playing at an MVP level and was voted in as an all-star starter, the first Knick to do so since Patrick Ewing. Stats presence both on and off the court led Melo to the Knicks. The trade wouldn't be made without Amar'e's impact in the first half. Sure, we only saw less than a half a season of both players in their prime, but Amar'e helped re-legitimize the franchise. His presence led to other free agents joining the franchise over the years. The team did make the playoffs 3 straight seasons from 2011 to 2013, the only time the Knicks made the playoffs in the decade.
I mean, they were only playing about 500 ball.
Yeah.
But given the fact that they only had nabbed one of the superstars out of that class, that felt like a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Especially when you had a team that for so long was underachieving with these expensive rosters and whatever. You finally had a max guy who was playing like a max guy.
Right.
You had this young core of guys that you could see it's kind of sad to think about now based off where things ended up after trades and everything, but you had Chandler growing up before your eyes, Gallinari growing up before your eyes.
And Gallo was that last season. Yeah. You saw a little bit of a leap from him too.
Yeah, Felton getting the D'Antoni bump.
Landry
you know,
Fields was insane that rookie year. Yeah, he did everything right.
Yeah, he looked phenomenal that year as a rookie and was like a second round pick and like played so much better than that.
Made first team all rookie.
All rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he averaged like 10 points and like 8 rebounds a
Yeah.
game as a shooting guard. He was such a good rebounder for his position. But yeah, I don't know. It was a magical like half season, and Amar'e was a huge part. It all started with Amar'e doing the Knicks are back. Like he was another guy. We were just talking about RJ. Amar'e was another guy that knew how to play the media game here.
Yeah. Oh, he did.
Like,
yeah.
he
Yeah.
gave good quotes. He was like impactful, you know, about like what he said, and he's like this is it. Like we're gonna make some noise. We're gonna get another superstar at some point. I'm gonna play with them, and that's it. We're good. Like,
Yeah, and it's funny too, looking back on kind of the back half of that. If you just look at what happened from Amar'e to like 2014, you look at us now, things are not as bad as they may have seemed when you look back, because we make playoff 2 or 3 times in that period. We have some other great stuff we're gonna get to, but in a way we were back a bit, because you compare the 5-year period with Amar'e, I guess, to the 5 years prior. And it actually was a lot better, even though we're talking really low standards overall.
I mean, they made the playoffs 3 years in a row.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
hey, listen. Tell me next time we make the playoffs, I can't even imagine what it's gonna feel like.
Oh, I know.
We get a couple of wins. I think I was crying after the Dallas game this year. So,
yeah.
so yeah. Speaking of Amar'e's partner in crime and someone who has moments that could have spanned this entire list, but let's talk about Carmelo Anthony in total. Kind of mentioned the trade, but you talk about that superstar being in New York and knowing you have a guy. Amar'e was that, but then Melo was that to like a next level. There was just this sense of we got a guy, we got a real guy. People forget how highly ranked Melo was coming here. We're talking 3rd, 4th best player in the league at that time.
Yeah, we were
around there.
People definitely had him in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah,
there was
easy.
debate about what his defense, his defensive liabilities weighed versus his total value as a player, but there was zero doubt that he was a top 10 player.
Yeah,
like, when he came to the Knicks.
And he comes here. He has a personal favorite of mine that half season he was here when he first got traded, and he has that amazing game in Boston in Game 2 when both Amar'e and Chauncey Billups goes down. He has like 44 and 17 or 42 and 17.
Jared Jeffries.
And Jared Jeffries misses the layup at the death. But we'll go on for that. But 62 points, 50 on all jumpers. Just, he brought some crazy moments as a Knicks fans, and I'm glad he's held in high regard now. But your thoughts on just Melo in the last decade? I mean, he's our player of the decade.
Has to be.
Yeah.
100%.
By default, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, he at least gave you a huge reason to watch. Like if Amar'e was kind of like the appetizer, Melo was the main course, and it was perfect to see him just score in bunches because of the fact that you're finally seeing that guy. I mean, like you can even go back at to maybe Bernard King. And like I certainly
guy who
wasn't there
just
for
felt
that.
like
and you guys weren't either. So it's like the sort of thing where you finally have this small forward or just this guy who can really contribute at such a high level, and he's on our team, and that's so awesome. And then you see these games, like just Melo 62. Yeah, Melo Easter. And the fact that Melo 62, that he had to come out early, always bugs me because like if he really wanted to, I think he could have gotten Kobe.
He could have gotten 80.
He'd probably but I remember watching that game, and I remember it was a struggle for him near the end. Like he got so tired getting to the end, and they took him out I think with 7 minutes left or something. But I was like, I think if he just kept shooting, his percentages would have like. But you never know. Maybe a couple of easy layups.
Poor Michael Kidd Gilchrist in that game.
Oh, and
man, he got destroyed.
Melo 62. This night was Offensive Wizardry 101. Melo dazzled the MSG crowd in the middle of an underwhelming season. He used every single offensive move he learned over the years of playing basketball to just school the Bobcats. Threes, mid-range, free throws, post-ups, jab steps, and all in single coverage. He ended the first quarter with 20 points and ended the first half with 37. He capped the half off with a buzzer-beating 3 at half court. After the first half ended, the crowd knew they were in for some history in the making. With 56 3/4, Melo was only 4 away from tying King's mark and only needed 5 not to only break King's record, but to also tie the mark for the most points scored in MSG history by any player. Kobe had 61 in MSG back in 2009. Melo finished the deal minutes into the fourth, got 62 points, and left with a roaring ovation as the Knicks were on their way to a lopsided victory.
That was that the infamous Bobcats though? That was 11.
Oh,
was,
the in terms of like the worst team.
Yeah, was it that?
That was the. I thought that was the strike short. Yeah,
that
strike
was
short year,
that was
right?
the
Like
strike short
the
year.
worst
So that
strike
was
short
the
percentage
it was
team. Of
the
all time.
66 game year, right?
Yeah, so the 62 came during the wasn't that 13-14?
Yes, it was.
I think it was. Yeah.
Because that year was generally a disappointment because it was right after the playoff year.
Because of what we thought.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that was like the one bright spot that kind of brought that one back. But yeah, that was an awesome game to watch.
Yeah.
I still remember watching that one and just being like in awe. I was like, and the 50 on all jumpers was crazy.
Oh my
too.
god!
I mean, that was a
Is that your
clinic.
favorite? I was gonna ask you, what's your favorite Melo of the? I tell you mine, the game 2 in Boston, just because of everything that went with it. The fact that he put the team on his back.
I think mine was actually also the Boston.
Really?
Game too. Yeah.
All right, man. I've never heard anyone love the game like me.
No, I just remember in that one just feeling so bad for him afterwards. You know, it was like bittersweet because you're like, oh my god, we just watched like a historic Knicks performance, but Jared
On the
Jeffries,
road, too.
Yeah, Jared
Yeah.
Jeffries couldn't hit a wide open layup, and that would have made that series 1-1. And who knows what would have happened after that? But then they wound up getting swept because I think momentum just
After that.
completely out. You know.
Yeah.
And there was just nothing they could really do to recapture that magic once Melo basically like spent his whole body like on that one game.
Rebounds,
You know?
everything. Oh.
Yeah, I think it was like 37 points and like 17 rebounds or something.
It was
insane.
42. It was
42?
definitely the 40s.
Okay.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, so you have 42, and I think it was 17
rebounds.
Yeah, and it was, but just such a clinic by him, and that was probably my favorite. The 50 on all jumpers was also a clinic in a different way because that was just like peak like Melo can't miss Melo.
Like technical skill. It just felt
Yeah.
like watching like an architect or somebody.
Or like
who
an
just
artist.
Is, artist
just
who's
like-
just so proficient and
just
it was-
making his brush strokes.
Yeah, like he made the game harder for himself just to show how much better he was.
Yeah.
Your favorite? I mean, we may have covered it, but what do you feel like the Easter game?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go with Easter because the fact that it's also crazy because Rose missed both the free throws.
Yep.
And then and Melo hits a shot, and then the Bulls miss 4 free throws to end the game.
Sounds
and,
like
you
the
know-
Knicks today.
Right. Exactly. So just that whole feeling of just that one shot to bring it all. I can't remember if it was because it was the tie or they took the lead, but just I so vividly remember the camera kind of zooming out
And
everyone's
seeing.
going nuts. And it's just such a cool feeling to
Yeah.
against that's such a good Bulls team as well, and that to me was
Sunday,
awesome.
Easter Sunday, everything. I was on a cruise. I was going for a cruise, like spring break. I remember being on my phone on like a bus taking me from one place to the other, just like, oh my god, no way. It actually felt like it started like, yeah, this is me. I'm Melo. This is New York. We're doing this.
Yeah.
And that was a precursor to the 2012-13 season, wasn't it? So
that was after Linsanity, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken. After
Yeah.
Lynn got hurt.
After he got hurt that year, yeah.
And it was kind of like where Melo was like reclaiming the team.
Mine.
Yeah.
And it
that
being
was-
Easter, much like Jesus.
Yeah.
Mellow Rose.
Mellow
Yeah.
Rose.
Yeah, exactly.
Mellow Rose. Speaking of Linsanity, and this is an all-time Nick thing, to be honest. It's not even just his decade. It's an all-time NBA thing. It's gone. It's definitely transcended sports.
Without many other options and desperation kicking in, Mike D'Antoni, with the encouragement of Melo to an extent, unleashed Lynn against the New Jersey Nets, and the rest is history. 1 7-game winning streak, 1 Time magazine cover, several nationally televised matchups, and instant fame. And this was done mostly without Melo and Amar'e in the lineup. What a time to be alive. Under Linsanity, the Knicks went 9-3 during the 12 starts before the All-Star break. Lynn averaged 22.5 points per game and 8.7 assists per game.
I get goosebumps when I think of Linsanity. Like, there's so many moments from it that could have been its own list, but Jeremy Lin comes in against the Nets. I remember me and my friends, I was in college at the time, and I was hyper-focused on the team, so I knew everyone down to, like, the last guy. I remember, like, Jeremy Lin played garbage time minutes, I think, in Sacramento, and he showed some stuff, and I'm like, and the season was going so bad at this point, and everyone's injured. I'm like, let this guy play. Comes on against the Nets, and it's 26 or something his first game. And then it just keeps going. I remember I had tickets to the Jazz game, which might have been the second or third game of Linsanity. I just happened to have it. I didn't have season tickets or anything. Me and my friends got it early. And I was so happy and lucky I was there. Because after that, the prices were just insane. But, Toronto shot. Kobe, the 40, the Sports Illustrated. I just...
2 Sports Illustrated covers. In the course of like a month. And then 2 Sports Illustrated covers. It's a weekly or a bi-weekly?
Back
I think
then, right?
Sports Illustrated's a bi-weekly.
Yeah.
2 straight, yeah.
Like 2 straight.
It was insane. It could have only happened like that in New York, and it definitely just felt like the most special kind of New York Knicks basketball thing that just was beyond analysis and everything. Just Linsanity. What do you remember, just even as being a fan watching? Did you go to any of the games?
I didn't go to any games, but you
Yeah.
asked me what my favorite thing. This is my favorite thing.
Okay,
Because the idea of Madison Square Garden chanting Jeremy. It was like,
Yeah.
I gotta rep my fellow Jeremy. So it's the sort of thing where
Shout out to your fellow Jeremy.
exactly. Yeah, no, I mean that to me, like we talked about the playoff game, right, and how that impact. This to me felt like even if it was a short-lived run, it was like every night you could almost expect the same kind of performance. I mean, the Raptors game, of course, it was huge.
That's the peak of it to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
when he just
even more so than
stepped
the
back
Kobe
and
game.
crushes it. Yeah, but then there was the Mavs game, and then of course with Kobe doubting him, and then it's like, I don't know who this Jeremy Lin guy is. And
He dropped 40.
yeah, it was nuts. I mean,
Yeah, it felt like it really just felt like a storybook thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, even with the race angle of, how many Asian Americans are even in the NBA, and he's become a star, and he's representing for so many people.
And in New York, which
and
is
in
like
New
the
York.
melting pot of like the whole United States. Like,
Yeah, it was just something else. Any lasting thoughts on Linsanity? I mean, to me, the Toronto game, and one thing I want to say as well is that one thing I think people forget about Linsanity as Jeremy Lin was going crazy, that season had gone so bad to that point, and all of a sudden, it wasn't, while Lin was the one scoring, the entire team just kind of clicked. I remember Jared Jeffries was really good during that 7-game stretch. Tyson Chandler was doing his thing. Shump was doing his thing. It just felt like the team was in cohesion.
and Amar'e was healthy for part of that as well.
Yeah,
right?
a little bit, yeah.
Melo was the only one that was
Melo
really
was the one who
out.
missed the whole thing.
But like, it also just, he almost saved D'Antoni's job by himself too, if you remember that. Like, because D'Antoni was kind of on the hot seat, and that's why in that first game he just kind of threw him out there just to be like, we don't have anybody else. Like, what are we gonna do? So he throws Lin out there, and he does what he does, and then I think the Knicks ripped off like, what was it, like 5 straight wins? or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
it ended
that?
up 6-1 maybe.
During Linsanity, they
Yeah.
only lost like 1 game, and then Lin himself got hurt,
And then
Melo came back, and then-
the rough Heat game where
Yeah.
LeBron and Wade targeted Jeremy Lin.
Yeah.
So,
and then ultimately, D'Antoni got fired, and then Woodson came on, and they finished with that really hot stretch. So that kind of faded Linsanity a little bit. But that was a weird season for like great feel good moments.
It was, yeah.
You had that Woodson bump after he got promoted, and they went like
Wait, 18-6? I think it was
18-6 or
18-6.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, to
and
end.
that propelled them into the playoffs as the 7th seed, because they were close to not making the playoffs
Right.
for most of the season.
I mean, Lin saved that season.
Yeah.
At the point, if Lin did not have that 7-game stretch, it would have just kept going
They
downhill.
would have just kept going downhill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would've-
D'Antoni just would have been fired earlier, and who knows without Melo there.
Might have skipped more time. Melo
Yeah.
might have taken more time off.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
never know. So yeah, Lin basically saved that season, and even let them do our previous moment of winning the first playoff game. So
And there's
hey,
something
it all-
to be said.
It all fits together.
Yeah, there's something
Yeah.
to be said about like strike shortened seasons and Knicks success. It's like there's a weird kind
Right.
of like
Yeah.
not even flash in the pan, but like they find themselves sort of mid stride, and it's like things kind of click and because
Less time to screw it up.
Exactly.
I would
Right?
say-
The 99, same thing. Short, like you said,
I
short
will
seasons.
say, who knows what would have happened that year if everybody could have gotten along, and if they could have all somehow been healthy at the same time.
Yeah.
Because if you could have, granted, you maybe never find Jeremy Lin without the injuries and everything, but if you could have somehow had Lin, Melo, Amar'e, and Tyson all
Just
healthy
all
at the
operating.
same point,
Oof.
and then hit the Heat in the first round of the playoffs. I mean,
Yeah.
that team's not that much different from a team that we feel like could have beaten the Heat in 2012 to
Yeah,
13,
the
which
year
we're
after.
about to talk about anyway.
Yep.
So, good segue by me.
Yeah, nice. And the best moment of the decade. It's crazy because for most good franchises, this would just be another okay season. But we talk about this season to this day like we won a championship from it. We were a 2 seed, 54 wins, the 2012-2013 season. And what's funny to me sometimes looking back at this is we're so forward focused as Knicks fans now. So much of it is analysis about obviously it's the team as well, right? We're really young, we have flexibility, we're not good, so we need to figure out what trade can we make? Is this player worth keeping? Blah, blah, blah. But the 2012-13 season felt like this weird just like time capsule thing where nothing mattered but this moment. None of these guys were really going to be here a year or two later. And in fact, I think half the roster couldn't make it past then. We had, we brought guys back from a decade before for one last run. You had Camby and Kurt Thomas back with the Knicks almost, 15 years after 99. You had Sheed coming out to play like a month, but that month was so impactful. Everything just, like, it felt like no matter who was out there, it was just going to work, and we were just going to keep fighting, keep pushing. We stumble into the three-point era before it even started. So many things to unpack from there.
The 2012-2013 season was a perfect one-hit wonder for the decade, the biggest anomaly. But unlike some of those singers that completely disappear after their one hit, elements of that season are more than ever present in the current state of the NBA. The season was the perfect storm. fans showed disgust when the team scrapped their youth movement in Linsanity and Landry Fields for a geriatric squad consisting of old Knicks staples in Kurt Thomas and Marcus Camby, one-time Knick rivals in Jason Kidd, Rasheed Wallace, and later Kenyon Martin. Sprinkle in some unheralded success stories in Steve Novak, J.R. Smith, and Pablo Prigioni, and the Knicks' big three of Melo, Amar'e, and Tyson finally had a crew to beat the Heat. As usual, things go wayward when new Knick Chris Copeland bumped knees with Amar'e Stoudemire during training camp. That eventually forced Stat to only play 29 games that season. In addition, Coach Woodson couldn't play his big starting lineup anymore. As some desperation kicked in, Woodson decided to go small. Let's start the 39-year-old Jason Kidd as shooting guard. Somehow, that ended up being a huge success. The Knicks started 20-7. In perfect D'Antoni fashion, the team hoisted 3 after 3 after 3 to lead the league and set precedent for years to come. With the help of the vets and Tyson, the team was top 10 in defense despite featuring a super switch defense that sometimes led to comical results, especially in the following season. Jason Kidd 4-point play in Brooklyn, Ball Don't Lie, Prigioni stealing cookies, the Kurt Thomas game in Utah, and a flashback to NBA Live in 2003 with Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin. Good times, 54 wins.
Alex, I'll start with you. Just 2012-13.
I mean, there's like uncountable. I was literally just trying to tally the moments in my head while you were just talking, and I'm like, I can't even hit them all. Like you had Kmart come in partway through the season, was a huge impact player. You essentially just rotated all these old bigs in there all season long. Like Camby really didn't play that much, but then you had Kurt Thomas, who we already, we mentioned that he had the moment where
Utah game.
Yeah, where he essentially ended his career for the Knicks, like to to try to propel them to a midseason victory.
Yep.
You had Rasheed Wallace played what he could, and he was dealing with injuries. Kmart had a huge impact, guys like that. Melo becoming like the first true like small ball 4,
right? And his best season of his career,
best season as a pro. Realistically, could have won MVP that year. Like if we're being real, like it was him and LeBron.
But people hate on. It's funny you brought that up because people hate on the fact that the Melo vote is what stopped. Isn't the Melo vote what stopped LeBron from winning unanimous MVP?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure it was, but
also Durant got votes.
Durant might have gotten
OKC
some
that year too.
Yeah, but I remember like Melo, the Knicks were hard. Like Melo got a Knick teens in the second seed. He deserves a presidency.
Yeah, it really depends. Like, do you look at it as most valuable to your team or best player? And like Melo was not the best player, but
he was most valuable to his team.
You take him off that team, we may not make the playoffs. That team, we didn't bring up Jason Kidd too. The Kid Felton backcourt, Prigioni, Pablo,
Priggy Smalls.
Priggy Smalls.
You had Shump, who was great, but then you also had like the funny moments, like the final game where Shump and Chris Copeland, Jonathan Bender, had to all play like 48 minutes because they only had 6 players that they dressed because they wanted to rest everybody for the playoffs. I mean, you had the famous J.R. Smith like strum the guitar and do this 3-point celebration.
The back-to-back game winners. Yep. That's the Shumpert dunk against the Pacers in the playoffs.
Wasn't that also the Shumpert rodeo trip too? Happened in 12-13.
Thinks that
was where he had the 3 straight. Was that 13-14?
Because wasn't that the season he was injured?
No, it was one of the years when they switched to the New Jersey. I don't know if it was the 12-13.
Oh, the weird gray striping thing.
Yeah. The first because the 12-13 was the first year they had New Jerseys too.
Right. A year of many firsts. Jeremy, just on that year, what do you even recall? Steve Novak. We didn't even bring him up.
Novak Kane, the discount double check. Yeah. I think for me the big thing about that year was Knicks were 5-0. They were in San Antonio. They were down. They came back. Wanted to go to be 6-0, but the biggest thing for me was Melo, and I checked this. Melo didn't score for the last 9 minutes and 37 seconds.
Wow.
So to me, it was like this team can come back and win. Not even with Melo, like there's something special brewing here.
Yeah.
And then of course you got the Jason Kidd 3 and 1. He missed the free throw. It didn't matter.
I remember that 3. I remember that 3 so well against the Spurs in San Antonio. Yeah. That's when we started having this weird thing where we beat the Spurs now.
Yeah. But then even with the Nets too, when Kidd hit it was like, okay, this is huge and it feels great in Brooklyn. Like, dunking on it, not physically dunking on it, but like the feeling of it.
But
as much as I hate on him too, like now, that was the year that Tyson won the DPOY.
DPOY. We had DPOY and 6th Man of the Year, and then Melo, like I said, MVP candidate, all in one.
It's easy to hate on Chandler because of how he disappeared in the playoffs that year and pretty much every year here that he was with the team. But I mean, that year, overall was like transcendent. Like that was great defense. He was an anchor in the biggest sense of the word. Like Melo did what he had to at power forward, but Melo's not defending anything. You know,
Right.
like he's not a protector of anything on defense.
And we needed him on offense too. Like it made
Yeah.
sense for him to expend his energy
yes.
over there. Yeah.
But like Chandler's like that year is like what we now kind of hope that Mitchell Robinson can be. You know,
Yeah.
as far as a full on anchor. You know, obviously we want Mitch to be better, but similar type of player, like as an archetype for what you want Mitchell Robinson to be now. Just a guy that, I mean, with barely any help defensively, Tyson Chandler made that team a pretty good defensive team. I think they ranked in the top 12 or something overall in defensive rating that year, which doesn't seem that great for like an elite team, but like considering the rate that they were scoring was fantastic because they were so high up in scoring rate.
And the 3-point shooting that year.
Yeah,
like
was
by
insane.
mistake, we became. I think at that point we set the NBA record for most made threes by a team, and I think we've never hit that number since, which is insane because the rest of the league have just zoomed past that number.
The Knicks haven't even gotten close.
And it was just, Novak and J.R. Smith having this weird, like, couldn't be more opposite guys.
Yeah.
And then this weird camaraderie and friendship between them. Steve Novak, just became, I mean, we talk about Novak to this day at that level because that year, everything he did, it's so special. It just
what was the interaction? It was like a locker room interaction between J.R. Smith and Novak where he talked about you drive a Buick or something like that. He said Buick instead of Buick or something like that.
Yeah.
Because he was like trying to clown on Novak about like driving a shitty car or something. I don't know. That resonated with me because I drove a Buick at that time. So.
Solidarity, Steve. But you know what it is? It's like that team, just for 1 year, it just all worked. It all gelled. It's kind of the best example of winning cures all. With the personalities on that team, you could do it. You could run that simulation again, and Kmart's fighting with Melo and whatever. But that year, everything was special. Jason Kidd having he was already doing pretty well for his late career. Had a little Indian summer renaissance that last season. Him and Felton somehow being a good backcourt that worked for most of the year. Woodson coaching and being the perfect person for that group. Chris Copeland hitting every contested jumper. It can go on and on. It's the highlight of our decade, and with good reason.
No doubt.
Hopefully we have better moments in the 10 years to come. Signing off here, thank you so much, guys, for being on and bringing your insight. This was a lot of fun going down memory lane. Like I said, I hope the next 10 years are not like this. Anything you guys want to plug that you're working on as we're going on right now?
Sure, yeah. Just in terms of Knicks Film School pieces and articles and podcasts I do with Jonathan Macri. I'll have a piece up in January. It's really going to try to evaluate the next, really for the future, like looking at how the team can build upon free agency, trade, drafts, kind of the direction, what that is. So I'm really excited. I've been working on that and some other things probably down the pipeline. And, fingers crossed the rest of the year.
Awesome. Follow Jeremy. His coincidence stuff is right here. I'm gonna edit and put it in. Alex, what are you working? You're working on everything. So what are you working on now? What are you excited about in terms of some of the stuff you're working on?
I've really been enjoying working for Knicks SI Sports. That's kind of a dream come true for me. As we're filming this, I have a game coming up that I get to cover and a couple more in January. So keep an eye out. It's sa.com/NBA/Knicks for all that stuff, doing game coverage. I may do some stuff in between as well, but mostly game coverage. There's that. So you can follow them at Knicks SI on Twitter. Posting and toasting, I write what I can there. I do a lot of editing there as well, though. So if things are immaculately copy edited, that's usually me. They're at PT Knicks blog on Twitter. I also basically run that account, so check that out during games. I'm very proud of my fast clipping fingers. And then Locked on Knicks podcast. If you enjoy this sort of discussion, we have Terry on sometimes. Jeremy we're going to have on at some point, I'm sure. Myself and my co-host Gavin. That's at Locked on Knicks on Twitter or anywhere you can download podcasts. You can find us pretty much daily. And then, of course, my personal Twitter handle, which is at the Alex Wolf, where I only tweet my funniest memes.
Only
and
his
tweets.
funniest.
Only my best. Sometimes weeks apart at a time. Because, quite frankly, I have too many other accounts to tweet from to worry about my own. So I'm there as well. So
awesome. Thanks to these two guys for being here. Hope you enjoyed this. Terry and Trey, you're out. Peace. It's Terry and Trey, and you know the vibes. If you like the show,
Please subscribe. And to check out some of our other stuff, click right here.